Yeah, hi everyone. Hope you're well today. As I often say, wherever you are, whatever time it is, keeping a positive attitude, calm mind as much as possible, loving and kind, compassionate, wise as possible, letting go of all negativities when they arise, nipping them in the bud, which will be the topic for the next few weeks after today, or maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. Okie doke. So, let's do the chanting. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until psychic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata Om Gati Gati Parasam Gati Bodhisoha. Tayata Gati Parasam Gati Bodhisoha. Tayata Gati Parasam Gati Bodhisoha. Om Ramum Siram Mani Peme Hum Om Sale Chule Sande Swaha Brum. Om Ramum Siram Mani Peme Hum Om Sale Chule Sande Swaha Brum. Om Ramum Siram Mani Peme Hum Om Sale Chule Sande Swaha. Om para sambara indiru vistami ha ha lulu jere soha. Om para sampara indiru vistami ha ha lulu jere soha. Om para sampara indiru vistami ha ha lulu jere soha. May you have a wealth of compassion and wisdom and compassion. So today we will finish up doing some wisdom tools, or utilizing the wisdom tools to develop the understanding of this teaching or contemplation, commentary on the interdependent origination, the 12 links of interdependent origination. I'll utilize it, we will utilize these 3 wisdom tools, okay, today, and we will finish it today. I had to think about it. I was going to elaborate a little bit more with some more examples, but I think 4 weeks is enough on this at the moment. especially considering I've given commentary on it before. Okay, so you can revisit those classes on the YouTube channel if you like. It was while we were doing the wisdom part of the 6 Paramita commentary. So that's probably two and a half years ago, maybe. I think, no, maybe 1.5 years. I can't remember anymore. We've been doing these Zoom classes for so long now. I know we started doing it in 2021 and finished up 9 months later, so 2022. So that is 2.5 years ago. So I'm right, was right. Now, forget everything. Past is gone. Future's not here. Present moment is fleeting. So keep yourself in the present as it becomes the present. Just words I'm using now. Don't cling to the words. Don't cling to even the meaning of the words, but follow the meaning of the words. Just like the finger pointing to the moon. The finger is not the moon. You only pay attention to the finger, it's all you see is the finger. Get attached to the finger. Never see the moon. Okay, so let's do some brief meditation now. And initially to release the tension from the body. So gently close your eyes, or firstly, get yourself comfortable enough physically. Gently close your eyes, lips gently touching, the tongue resting on the upper palate in the mouth. Make sure you're not frowning or you're not clenching your jaw. Parts of the body that are easy to release the tension, relax your shoulders. The obvious tension. Now bring your mind inside your body and we'll go from the bottom to the top. So release the tension from all around your feet and then your lower legs, the knees and upper legs, midsection and upper torso. Work your way up the front, sides and the back. To your neck and your shoulders, down your arms, and then to the top of your head. Now scan your body once more to see if there's any leftover tension, and if there is, release it. Now bring your mind to the tip of your nose and follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe in your nose all the way into your lungs and back out your nose again. So try to follow the feeling of the breath, or placing your mind on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. Try to do it seamlessly. Then, of course, if the mind wanders, apply the antidote. Breathing in, breathing out to help you out as well. You may like to use the extra technique of counting the breaths from 1 up to 10. So 1 in breath and 1 out breath is 1, and so on. And if you get distracted on the way to 10, go back to 1 at that time. Also, I'll give you some extra detail here as well, like I've done in the last few weeks and sometimes in the past. You can say there's 3 areas really, that you can really focus. Make sure that you're focusing on the feeling of the breath as you're breathing in and out. That's the tip of the nose, the chest area, and the abdomen, or the lungs, the stomach area. Because as you breathe into your lungs, they expand, and therefore the stomach rises a little. Then when you breathe out, they compress, and the stomach drops a little. So these are extra techniques, or extra details, I should say, that can help you stay focused on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. So if any thoughts arise, or any mental activity whatsoever arises, don't cling to it. Don't grasp at it. Don't try to force it away or deny it. but simply replace your mind back onto your breath and let go of any of these mental activities, mental agitation, excitement, and so on. Don't cling to them, don't grasp at them, don't try to force them away because that's extra thoughts. Don't deny them. It's like living like a fish in Egypt, living in denial. Forget my old joke. If your mind starts to become dull or sleepy, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. So refocusing on your breath is the antidote for both the distracted and agitated mind, as well as the dull or sleepy mind. So let's practice like this in silence for a little bit. So now we can feel pleased with ourselves and fill ourselves with universal loving kindness. Utilize the technique of visualization, visualizing yourself, your whole being filling with the white light, which is representative of universal loving kindness. Or if you like to visualize a different texture, maybe more smooth, you could say, then you can say white nectar. Or at the very least, go with the feeling of this universal loving kindness. Filling your whole being now with this white light. Filling yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your loved ones, family, and friends, filling them with the universal loving kindness too. So when you are radiating this loving kindness, utilizing the visualization technique, then visualize the white light or nectar leaving your heart center. Still, you are filled with this white light or nectar, but now radiating outwards further and further as well. It enters the heart centers of the living beings that you are visualizing or imagining are in front of you. So to your family, loved ones, also to strangers. Just remind you that you can do this like one person or a few people, or it can be more, you could say, abstract idea of many, many loved ones and friends and so on. Many strangers, up to you really. Maybe you can just focus on one or a few. This type of thing is, you can use your creativity, this type of meditation. So now also include those you may regard as enemies, filling these people with universal loving kindness. May they all be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. Now let's radiate it further and further, distance-wise, to all living beings now, not just people. To all the living beings around your immediate area, all the living beings, whether weak or strong, great or small, short or tall, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born, whether they live in the waters, on the land, fly through the air, born from wombs, from eggs, from moisture, or through transformation. All of the innumerable living beings around you, filling them with the white light of universal loving kindness too. Now radiating further and further, the radiation of our loving kindness is gathering so much momentum now, covering throughout your whole state or county, and other states and counties throughout your whole country. And other countries throughout the world, as well as all of the oceans, down to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere. And have your loving kindness pervade throughout the whole solar system and all of the solar systems throughout the galaxy and all of the galaxies throughout the universe and beyond, until your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space, this immeasurable loving kindness, radiated with a mind of equanimity, non-bias, to all living beings. So let's recite the dedication prayer now too. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. So, hope you're feeling nice now. Like I said, brief meditations, so that we can utilize the meditation again to absorb your mind with understanding, so we have enough time to go through today's teaching. So I'll read to you the last part of the article, Interdependent Origination. This is what we covered last week, and then we go on to the extra bits we didn't cover yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to match with the formula of the Buddha's words with my commentary. Very brief, sort of like simplified, you could say, in a way. And then, so we'll do that for the dependent part, and then we'll do the same for the ceasing part, so freeing ourselves from the suffering, okay? Excuse me. I think we got 19 minutes to go, so that'll be enough time to do it briefly. So, one could understand the sequence in a more simpler, fluid way. For example, to the extent to which the mind has not comprehended the truth, habitual drives and tendencies manifest and condition awareness into a discriminative mode of consciousness that operates in terms of subject and object, or mentality and physicality, held to exist on either side of the six sense doors. These sense doors open dependent on contact that can arouse varying degrees of sensation or feeling. Feeling stimulates desire, and according to the power of desire, attention lingers and clings. And so personal aims and obsessions develop to give rise to self-consciousness. That self-consciousness, once arisen, must follow the cycle of maturing and passing away, resulting in a sense of suffering and sadness that varies from sorrow to grief and depression to anguish and emotional breakdown. But when the mind looks into the sense of loss and comprehends the truth, habitual drives and tendencies cease, and the awareness is no longer bound by a discriminative mode of consciousness, so that the separation of the subject and object mentality and physicality is no longer held, and one does not feel trapped by or pulled out through the six sense doors. The sense doors open for reflection, rather than being dependent on contact, and therefore impingement does not impress itself into the mind. So there is freedom from desire, and attention does not linger and get stuck and grow into selfish motivations that center around and reinforce the ego or self-centeredness. So when no personal self-image is created, it can never bloat up or reinforce itself, nor can it be destroyed. So there is nothing to lose. A sense of gladness, uplifting joy, and serenity is experienced. So this is realizing the truth of suffering, the Four Noble Truths now, truth of suffering, then realizing the cause of the truth of suffering, and then by applying the Eightfold Path, the fourth Noble Truth, and thoroughly traversing the path, and then realizing the third noble truth of the cessation of the ceasing of the cause of suffering. Okay, so hopefully you understand that, and if you don't, just revisit it all, and also check other commentaries, check long commentaries, check short ones like this one, because they're a little bit cryptic, but maybe you've already planted the seeds in this life or previous lives to understand things very quickly. Or maybe you need longer explanations, okay? So often I think people, and myself when I was younger, think that the longer commentaries are more profound, but so often it's actually the shorter ones that are more profound, because you need to read the longer ones with a lot of details, a lot of repetitiveness, before the mind starts to become ripe to understand things when they're, short verse forms and things like that. Okay, so now wisdom of hearing, and whatever it is you hear, I'm not going to go through bit by bit because we don't have the time, okay? But I may stop, here and there. But like I said, I'm going to utilize the formula spoken by the Buddha, first of all, from the dependent and lack of freedom, then my commentary with it, okay? Then we'll go on to the ceasing, to the freedom from, okay? Okay, so once again, wisdom of hearing. Up to you if you keep your eyes open. Don't be distracted by physical things or my movements even. But you can close your eyes if you like and hear these teachings. Then I will ask you to contemplate in silence. And then I will ask you to meditate in silence on these teachings. Whatever it is you understand, don't do your head in now. Don't try to remember everything, okay? If you understand one point, dependency and ceasing of each part, okay? If you understand one point, you'll understand all of it eventually. So listening. Dependent on ignorance are karmic formations. Dependent on karmic formations is consciousness. Dependent on consciousness are name and form. Dependent on name and form are the 6 sense bases. Dependent on the 6 sense bases is contact. Dependent on contact is feeling. Dependent on feeling is desire. Dependent on desire is clinging. Dependent on clinging is becoming. Dependent on becoming is birth. Dependent on birth is old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering. And now matched with the commentary. To the extent to which the mind has not comprehended the truth, habitual drives and tendencies manifest and condition awareness into a discriminative mode of consciousness that operates in terms of subject and object, held to exist on either side of the 6 sense doors. These sense doors open dependent on contact that can arouse varying degrees of sensation or feeling. Feeling stimulates desire, and according to the power of desire, attention lingers and clings. And so personal aims and obsessions develop to give rise to self-consciousness. That self-consciousness, once arisen, must follow the cycle of maturing and passing away, resulting in a sense of suffering and sadness that varies from sorrow to grief and depression to anguish and emotional breakdown. So now contemplate this teaching. Even if you don't yet remember all of the links, know that from this ignorance causes suffering. From this ignorance, desire arises, and attachment and aversion arise. 3 poisons. We create karma. It's the second link. Leaves an imprint in the consciousness. And we see things through subject and object, the 5 skandhas. We have some contact through our senses. Feeling arises, gives rise to desire for or desire not for. Stronger desire called clinging and becoming an existence. Then gives rise to birth. Remember, this is not just the birth of a living being, but also birth of a moment, birth of a world, all of these things, okay? And everything in between. And then from the birth, of course, the aging, passing, and all of the difficulties we will experience because we have not freed the mind from ignorance. So now meditating on it, whatever it is that you have understood from your contemplation after hearing the teaching. So now ceasing absorbing your mind with that part of the teaching and back to the wisdom tool of hearing teaching now before we will move on to the contemplating again and then on to meditating again. So the part of the formula that what we just dealt with was the arising of dukkha, or suffering, unsatisfactoriness. The cessation of dukkha, or suffering, is now addressed. With the ceasing of this ignorance, karmic formations cease. With the ceasing of karmic formations, consciousness ceases. With the ceasing of consciousness, name and form cease. With the ceasing of name and form, the six sense bases cease. With the ceasing of the six sense bases, contact ceases. With the ceasing of contact, feeling ceases. With the ceasing of feeling, desire ceases. With the ceasing of desire, clinging ceases. With the ceasing of clinging, becoming ceases. With the ceasing of becoming, birth ceases. With the ceasing of birth, old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering come to cease. Therefore, with the ceasing of this ignorance, all suffering ceases. Matched with the commentary now. But when the mind looks into the sense of loss and comprehends the truth, habitual drives and tendencies cease, and the awareness is no longer bound by a discriminative mode of consciousness, so that the separation of the subject and object is no longer held, and one does not feel trapped by or pulled out through the six sense doors. The six sense doors open for reflection rather than being dependent on contact, and therefore impingement does not impress itself into the mind. So there is freedom from desire, and attention does not linger or get stuck and grow into selfish motivations that center around and reinforce the ego or self-centeredness. When no personal self-image is created, it can never bloat up or reinforce itself, nor can it be destroyed. So there is nothing to lose. A sense of gladness, uplifting joy, serenity. Therefore, with the ceasing of this ignorance, all suffering ceases. Now contemplate on this teaching. We have freed ourselves from ignorance, lack of understanding, lack of wisdom. If we have realized the wisdom which uproots this lack of wisdom or ignorance, then we do not create karma. If we don't create the karma, then it does not leave impressions on our consciousness. When the karma is not created, we will not experience the effects. We are freed from them. Therefore, we give up the dualistic way of thinking, realize non-duality, realize the emptiness of a separate self. We utilize our mind as it is for reflection, develop compassion, so on. We have realized the Four Noble Truths and the cessation of samsara, cyclic existence. So now utilize the wisdom tool of meditation to absorb your mind with this teaching. While you are doing this, really be joyful, because at very least, we have improved our understanding of these deep teachings. Still absorbing your mind with these teachings. I'll recite the formula as you do so. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Okay, just let your mind absorb with the teachings, with what it is you understand. Dependent on ignorance, it's karmic formations. Dependent on karmic formations, it's consciousness. Dependent on consciousness, it's name and form. Dependent on name and form are the six sense bases. Dependent on the six sense bases is contact. Dependent on contact is feeling. Dependent on feeling is desire. Dependent on desire is clinging. Dependent on clinging is becoming. Dependent on becoming is birth. Dependent on birth is old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering. With the ceasing of this ignorance, all karmic formations cease. With the ceasing of karmic formations, consciousness ceases. With the ceasing of consciousness, name and form cease. With the ceasing of name and form, the six sense bases cease. With the ceasing of the six sense bases, contact ceases. With the ceasing of contact, feeling ceases. With the ceasing of feeling, desire ceases. With the ceasing of desire, clinging ceases. With the ceasing of clinging, becoming ceases. With the ceasing of becoming, birth ceases. With the ceasing of birth, old age, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, despair, and a whole great mass of suffering come to cease. Therefore, with the ceasing of this ignorance, all suffering ceases. So rejoice, be happy with yourself, and remember that you are your own best friend. The more we improve our minds, the better it is for us, isn't it? The more wisdom, compassion we develop, the better it is. The less self-centeredness we will have, the less ignorance we have, less attachment. So I rejoice in your goodness. Look after your mind, look after your body, look after others if at all possible, especially with your mind, actually. You can always do it with your mind. Study,